Yep. Here it goes, and the signal's coming in. Great. And then now it just gives a new link. So your stream key and everything stays the same.
Yep.
But it just provides a new link for viewers to watch. And
Gotcha.
here it is. I just linked it to you.
Gotcha.
That's it. It's real simple. So whenever you want to do these, you can just ping me and I'll just create a new link for you. Easy. But I see you running around and having a good time. Let me just confirm the music and mic is there. Go ahead and talk and play the music and we'll just confirm.
Should be all good. Let me know.
Everything looks great, man. So feel free to share this link with everybody. They'll hear the beginning of our conversation we've had and have a good time, man.
Cool, man. Thanks very much.
You got it, man. I think this is going to be way better for everybody. They'll be able to see some detail. So
I might share it to character leaks. Yeah, I might share it to character leaks.
Yeah, why not? Tell them, hey, it's the first 1080 stream. Come take a look. It's gorge.
Cool. Thanks so much, man.
You got it, man. Have a good time.
Pretty crazy, huh? Wow. I can't even believe it. It might actually be pre-recorded. I mean, how could you believe it? It's mental. And it's still shit in my eyes. It's still shit. There's like so much left to do, like all the polishing shit that you wouldn't usually see, but I'm not gonna lie, this is fucked. Like, this is fucked. Wow. Like, this is months of the team just going next level. Like, all I'm doing right now is reducing it, getting the composition right, and making sure that it doesn't feel too noisy and too over the top. Like, part of the stylized look and feel is that you have to simplify things, because if you're going to be playing these levels over and over and over, you want to make sure that there's correct path forming. You want to make sure that the viewer is easy. It's easy on the viewer to navigate, and it doesn't get too crowded. Like, each area needs to have its own feel, but the actual brunt of the work has been Emil, Vanya, Andy, Dimitri, just fucking... by the way, there are a couple of streaming issues and stuff like that. Like, obviously, first of all, I've got everything cranked here and nothing's optimized in this version of the game. Like, this is the UE4 editor, not the compiled version of the game. So in this version, all the textures are max resolution. The optimization on the LODs isn't there. So it's running much worse than it would in the final compiled version of the game. And I'm also streaming 1080p 60 FPS on top of that. So there's obviously a performance hit in doing live streams like this, especially with RTX. But if I disable RTX, right, the game looks, in my eyes, not close, but good enough where it still looks amazing. And the FPS is just fucking buttery smooth. Ray tracing's got it, you know, certain things like the GI right now is being cranked with ray tracing. The final game, all of that gets baked down. So the only real thing that you're computing on RTX in our game in the final version is the dynamic soft shadows, so that you get that kind of like eerie through the dust atmosphere, which you can't get with really harsh spotlights. Like, you can see in the middle of the screen, there's this like harsh line, and if I enable ray tracing in the game, that softens that whole effect and makes it look a little bit more like a Pixar film. Why is Spotify playing weird? I'm signed into my Spotify. Ah, it's not my upgraded account. Okay, give me a second. I'll update the Spotify. Just a sec. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Yeah, you can. Nah, this is it lags when the I'm setting up Spotify. Just give me a second. This is part of the problem when you're trying to stream a massively hyped AAA game in a work in progress state. Everyone assumes that everything's meant to be completely finished straight away, and unfortunately, that's not how game development works. Although we have done a freakish job of getting things to this state this early. It's stupid. Trust me, it's stupid. Never seen anything like it. Okay. I might have Spotify Premium here now. This is just copyright-free music, by the way. I could probably play... I mean, it might, just to kick things off, might be better to actually just play some of the actual ambient music from Abyssal Basin that Ben has been working on. Oh, this is a new track. Never before heard. So this is from our in-game battle map music. So when we get to this phase of making the levels, I'm going through and trying to, like I just said earlier, simplify things. And so the more than like grinding and moving shit, it's about like actually understanding and almost play testing it yourself. Let me... God, everything's coming together, guys. It's music, the ambience, like there's no sound implemented in this version because it's purely for set dressing. But just imagine when we, like, there's all the weapons, there's like bugs, like you see when I zoom in, there's like a bug that like slows it down. That's just like some problem that's got to go. But it's like in the trailer, right, we had that scene where she like runs around a corner and zooms in and fires a tracking dart at one of the Illuvials. So now imagine there's an Illuvial running away from you and you like run around the corner and you're like trying to get that shot off, fire, you hit it, it's a holographic encounter, you're charging in, you got 10,000 viewers on stream live, waiting to see you capture a $100,000 NFT. Like, what? Like, it's happening. Just been doing all the ambient lighting, getting that green transition from the top to the bottom so that every area of the screen feels clean, massive, atmospheric. Kind of without the ambient sounds and without, like, you know, the running and the footsteps and the reverb off the walls and shit like that the sound guys have been working on. It doesn't really hit the same, but, like, I feel like we're getting to a point now where I can, like, do these high quality streams and people are just gonna freak the fuck out. Like, come on. This is not crypto gaming. Hold on, let me get some other music going here. What have we got? Crimson Waste Ambient V3. That's the other thing. The sound guys are constantly upgrading all the sounds too. Like, just over time, just figuring out what the style is. Yeah, like, honestly, guys, this is crazy. So this is one tunnel in Crimson Waste. There's 7 of these tunnels. Now, I haven't polished the other tunnels like I have this one, and this is still, you know, still a couple of months away with the rest of the team doing their thing, adding in all the little subtle things. We've got procedural plant generation to add up the top. There's just fuck tons of shit to add to the game. There's always another level of detail we can go to. There's always another level of immersion with sounds or VFX or plant animations. You'll notice all the plants are dead stationary. And that's all about to change. We're integrating, or at least looking into integrating, a physics system for the plants, like a rudimentary physics system. So say if I like look at the plant and like fire a gun at it, it kind of jiggles back and forth and bounces off the rocks. It won't be the most realistic simulation ever, but just any kind of little interactions we can encompass in the game is going to increase that immersion. And right now, this is not like a... Like I said, this is just the set dressing version of the game. It's not like, it's very rudimentary implementation of the movement system, but there's nothing else, right? Like, I can't interact with the interface. I can't do a bunch of shit. And in the final game, but like I'm trying to put my head in the mindset of someone who comes into an environment like this. They've been grinding for a long time, but hopefully it doesn't get old because the graphics are amazing and the immersion is there. Like it's a world that you want to go into, but just the first time you encounter a holographic bubble that you get pulled into, knowing that like it could be big, it could be real big. That's what's getting me hyped. And like, if you watch all of the content creators around Illuvium, they're all saying the same thing. You know, it's we can't sit here and say that this game is anywhere near as close as interactive as, say, like a Horizon Forbidden West coming up, which has had 400 people, 500 people at least, spending 5, 6, 7 years on development. Like, we can't say that. But the idea that the graphics are just as good, if not better, and we can back that up on the screen now. No one can call bullshit on that anymore. You know, it's just going to come down to what type of style do you like more. But no one can say that we haven't gone absolutely beyond any expectations in terms of the graphics. It's just, you're just wrong. It's just not right. If you were to say that. And here we are. We're getting close. We're getting real close. We're getting real close. Just feels good to start to take it in, you know? Like, we're actually doing this. It feels good. I'm sure first person would be fairly easy to implement, for sure. So that's the other thing. Like I said, Mozart in this version hasn't had any updates in a long time. And part of game development is that each of the teams are siloed off and they're working on individual components of the game that then get later implemented into the main branch of the game. And this is the environment branch, like the second environment branch where certain things are being done, you know, polished, and we're not doing tech stuff. And all of it kind of like with game development converges right at the end. You know, like for example, when we produced the second trailer, right up until, say, the last week to 2 weeks, on an 8-week schedule, then and only then did we start actually recording the gameplay, because all the teams combined were pooling together their resources to get a functional version of the game in its, you know, pre-alpha state for the trailer. And I was like, it's kind of scary, right? Like, you think like, holy shit, we don't have a game on our hands 2 weeks out from needing the trailer due, and it's just simply because the team's working around the clock to try and make sure that everything fits. There's no bugs. You know, in game development, one bug can screw the entire team and halt production on something as large as that trailer. And we didn't have that, luckily. It was just like the whole team had to pull off their individual components, and they did it. Like, one by one, it was like, cool, integrate the new hits, integrate the new VFX, integrate the UI. Even though Florian, you know, got arrested, it was still something that was being implemented up until that point at the last minute. And to see that's the trailer, but for the entire game itself, think about how many components are going into this. Like 180 people working on the game as of the last week. It's always changing, always hiring new people, as we have to do to maintain that growth and to hit the milestones. Because one of the other big things is, like, you got to realize, guys, 6 months ago, no one was expecting the environments to look this good. I don't think anyone in the community was expecting this. I wasn't expecting this, and not in the time, right? Not 6 months ago. I did not think we would be here, and you know, we're here, and it's kind of just like. But anyway, I'll probably, I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm just running around the level. I'm just trying to like make mental notes of like where things are looking good. You got to remember that part of this game is like the overworlds. They're meant to be like the Pokemon card opening. So you're paying to enter this region. It's because you're paying for it. It's got to be good, right? It's got to be visually good. And you're paying for the ability to capture those NFTs because that's where the value comes in resale and stuff like that. Like, you know, you're not. Most people aren't buying Pokemon cards because of like they want to play the game in the long term. You know, you want to play the game enough to get that connection with the game, but then you want like a memento of that game, and that's going to be the NFTs. So the NFTs have to be good. We're working on all the artwork, trying to finalize all the characters for the private beta. We've got about 3 to 4 to go, you know, and when you come into an overworld, we're not trying to advertise this as Horizon Forbidden West or Tomb Raider, because we just don't have the time to implement crazy mechanics that could potentially make the game not as interesting or cause issues. We're trying to, like, our mentality is how do we make the most functional, polished game that's bug free in the time frame or around about the time frame we set out to achieve. No, you know, no 3-4 year delays like Cyberpunk. And if it's not enough, at least we can add to it. But if the game sucks, then people don't want to play it. They don't want more added to it. Whereas we feel we can make a game which people want more added to it without it destroying the first impression, if you get what I'm saying. That's the balancing act where we're trying to put down here. Like, we're trying to, how do we make a game that feels polished, doesn't have annoying bugs in it that ruin the performance or ruin the immersion of the game. You know, like things like fucking ramfires or squizzes flying through the screen. Things like Mozart right now on the screen. Like, he doesn't have any complicated AI-based movement mechanics or IK. He's just basically floating there and playing through a couple of idle animations. It looks shit, right? Like, that's not AAA. And, you know, things like that will change over time. We'll make sure Mozart's smaller, out of the way a little bit. He gets a little bit distracting. But, like, we're getting there. And it's just cool to see. It's just cool to see. Just run around and, you know, I'm getting hyped for what the community's going to think. You know, it's a little bit scary, to be totally honest with you. It's like, as you get closer and closer, it's like, what are people going to think? Is the gameplay going to be boring for them? But hopefully, as a community who's followed us from the start and has seen what we've been able to achieve in a short amount of time, has that trust in us now where it's like, okay, cool. If there is, once we go to that open beta, problems and there is things that we need to fix, we'll just fix them. And it's just going to take a little bit of time. And, you know, you trust that we do things really quickly and efficiently, thanks to Aaron, and making sure that everything's planned and got tasks and guidelines and everything. Every artist is, you know, their stuff is being managed correctly without breaking that concept of like giving artists deadlines and stuff like that. Like, this is purely a passion project for, I would say, 90% of the team, realistically. I can't say every single person on the team is just like some Terminator sent back in time to create the greatest game ever, but the vast majority of our team are like that. Like, they just want to be a part of something that revolutionizes the industry that they've been in for 10 to 15 years. And, you know, we've got a whole range of people. We've got people who now hate mainstream AAA development. We've got people who have never worked in AAA development, but who are freaks of nature. And, like, you'd almost, after knowing how AAA game dev works, like, say you've made the right call for not going and working for those types of companies, because you're not getting a cut of the game, you're not getting a percentage of profits, you're getting handheld, you've got that corporate management structure where you got like you know, the leads, and then the producers, and then the dipshit CEOs who are treating people unfairly. You know, the good thing about our game development is Kieran, we're all my brothers and I, like, we're very good, and we've learned how to stay in our lanes, basically. So in terms of the corporate structure, Aaron's dealing with all the game devs and the production side of things. I'm dealing with all the artists. Kieran's dealing with all of the mainstream community stuff and the business related stuff with sales and things like the land sale and stuff like that, working with Danny. And because we all stay in our lanes and trust each other, there's not this like wacko structure where the artists are getting told what to do by Kieran, who has no idea what he's doing in terms of art, and I'm not sitting there trying to talk about how to change the tokenomics in the community. And so the artists like on the team, or the game developers on the team, don't have random people who don't know what the hell they're doing telling people what to do. And like, I personally, my previous business before this Illuvium business I was teaching thousands of people complex CGI stuff, put my whole life and soul into it, burned myself out doing it. And I was a little bit worried that, like, okay, if you want artists to go next level, it's like you got to teach them how to do it or hope to get lucky. And the difference with Illuvium is because we had such a massive budget and such a massive option with the ILV tokens to incentivize people who came on the project, it was like field day for me. It's like Kieran's like, money's no object, just do what you would do to build the best art team, and what would Aaron do to build the best game dev team, and just have ultra high standards and utilize those tools at your fingertips to incentivize people. And that's what we've done, and what you're seeing here is the result of that. Right? Like, if you went to any other mainstream AAA studio and said, hey, get environments like this in 12 months with a team who is never, like, a first-time game studio, it doesn't happen. This doesn't happen, and people can say everything they want about, you know, NFTs and bubbles and all this bullshit. I couldn't give a crap, to be totally honest. I'm not making this game because of even NFTs necessarily. It's just like, if you had an unlimited budget and an unlimited community reach, what would you do? And I think Kieran and I both have agreed that, like, how do we just capture that Pokemon feeling? And NFTs are the modern way to do that. They're not the sole reason why the game's going to be successful, but the tokenomics behind NFTs and behind decentralized gaming have allowed us to build this team together. So anyone can go on YouTube and say NFTs are bullshit and crypto is a scam and all of this shit. And yes, a lot of it is. A lot of it does have huge flaws, cash grabs, rugs, whole bunch of shit. But at some point, I think everyone knows that someone's going to come along and show how to do it. Facebook did it with social networks. You know, they took MySpace, an absolute disaster in terms of UI and UX design, and was capturing the mindsets of like 14-year-olds who don't understand, you know, basic, you know, like web 2.0 UI functionality. And then a company like Facebook comes along and goes, okay, let's do that. Very simple concept. Take what's already there and turn it into something that can be the next generation of that thing. And that's what we're trying to do here. You know, so alrighty, let me get back to doing a bit of set dressing. Kind of got a little bit distracted on a crazy crypto rant. I might have to this will be interesting because stream this. Trying to set something up here so I can see the chat while I'm working. Okay, we go into OBS. It's not going to be perfect. Just scale it up a little bit anyway. Okay, just gonna. The other thing is too with UE4, there's sometimes I wouldn't call it a bug. Maybe it's just like a overload on the GPU. But if you're working with RTX in the viewport over like a 1 hour, 2 hour period, it starts to get a little bit sluggish. And like if I go and restart Unreal Engine, it's gonna instantly refresh. But like it's sometimes just easier just to disable RTX. You know, it looks slightly different, and then I can run through and just work on some stuff. So I'm going to try and spend the next half an hour just positioning, polishing up things that really aren't working. So even like little things like immersion, like in games, I hate when you see an object cutting through shit like that. Like, it's not really cool. Just delete it. Always want to try, and one of the things I'm trying to explain to the people set dressing at the moment is that less is more, and by adding tons of stuff, it doesn't necessarily make the environment better, and in fact, a lot of the time, it just makes it much worse, because when you're stylized, like you guys, you load into this game, you pay money to enter the game. What's worse than paying money and then feeling that frustration straight away? That like, why did I just like, trust me, I bought 20, 30 games over the last year. Just not to play the games front to end, but just to get an understanding of what other game studios are doing, try and figure out the type of like techniques they're using and what the stories are like and the immersion, shit like that. And you don't want to pay for a game and then it's just hard to run around in and hard to figure out where you are and stuff like that. So one of the things I've been doing the last day is, you'll notice got these tunnels in Crimson Waste, and I've created this like dune-like path, and all these dune shaders they're totally work in progress. We've got things planned to make those look better, but you know, you want the dune, and if I swap to unlit mode, you'll see what I mean here. The red has to kind of like wind around like a path through the level, so that as you're playing, you know, like, do you go underneath? Do you go above? Remember, there's going to be exotic plants that procedurally spawn in these environments that you have to mine and harvest, you know, the minerals and the plants to create new weapons with, to take into the battles. You know, so if Crimson Waste might have a different type of mineral compared to other regions, and therefore if you want to get a certain type of weapon for a game, you have to grind this level, and we just want it to be as easy to navigate through the environment as possible. So I'm trying to think what I could do here. Maybe what'd be cool, so like one of the things I'm always looking for is ways to direct the viewer's eye through the scene. And you can see we've got like, and sometimes that requires doing some drastic things. And like I've got this path that kind of leads to a dead end under the cave, but it'd be cool if maybe there was a path, like a sandy like path that kind of came through here for the player to be able to run up through. Because when you first enter the game, your jumping boots aren't going to allow you to jump up that high. You know, you're going to be quite restricted compared to when you're playing the game. And you can see with like, this is, like I said, an old outdated version, but you can get quite high in the air when you're jumping around and stuff. So I'm going to go to the landscape tool, and you got the sculpting tool on the landscape. Look at the, and I'm just going to, it's going to be a little bit weird. I'll set it to like 0.4 in intensity and just paint it in. Like so. Starts out super rough. I'll smooth it backwards. And the good thing is like, what a lot of people don't understand about myself and Dimitri when we're doing stuff is we come from a high-end print advertising background, and the work we were doing is an order of 5 to 10 magnitudes beyond game development in terms of shader complexity and polish and finesse. You know, if I'm spending 2-3 days blocking out this scene and trying to make it look good, if this was a print advertising scene for like a cinematic or something like that, I would spend 10 times longer working on it, making sure that like every little scattered distribution of moss down the corners was all properly placed, and everything, all the lighting was dynamic, and all the subsurface shaders were reacting to the lights correctly. They all had this kind of aura. The god rays were all perfect. There's so many things that you would do in print advertising. And when you teleport to game dev, some things are harder, but a lot of it to Dimitri and I is much easier. You know, this feels like kind of like baby child stuff to us. And it's not really being egotistical. It's just like, it's just the world we come from, where everything needs to be perfect because you see everything because you're rendering it literally 10 times bigger. You know, if this is 4K, we're rendering stuff 20 pixels wide by 10,000 pixels high. And so when it comes to set dressing and environment creation, props and rock placement and stuff like that, like we've seen and done it all. And so when we're hiring people, who cares if they've worked on a AAA game or not? If someone's good at set dressing, it doesn't matter if they're doing it in Unreal Engine or if they're doing it in V-Ray, Maya, Houdini, Blender, you know, Forest Pack, Multiscatter, whole bunch of tools that artists can be using, and it all applies evenly. You know, ZBrush, you know, we have sculptors who are now, you know, freak world's best sculptors who've never worked on environments in their life. Purely character artists jumping on to creating environment assets like archways like this. You know, this was done procedurally, but in some regions we can't get away with doing things like this procedurally. And the artists are sitting there and just blasting out stuff so fast because they come from a world where you've got to do an Iron Man character or a Ready Player One character to the same quality in the same time as a game character. And then you go to games and it's like, oh, it's nowhere near as detailed. Like, I don't need to zoom in and sculpt micro cracks in the surface because you just can't get that stuff in. And so that's one of the other reasons why we're seeing, you know, some of these insane outputs. And I mean, that is not the first time, obviously. There are other games that have had teams of people come from film and cinematics and they do their thing. But I think it's just a combination of just having everything there, you know, having someone like Aaron there to make sure that we've got proper organization, because I'm one of the most unorganized people of all time. Like, just being totally honest, I'm terribly unorganized, and Aaron has had to work his ass off to come up with pipelines that make it so that people like me on the team, the artists on the team who are just not good at that type of stuff, have tasks, know what they're doing, it's simplified, they're working in their own time, and yeah. So you can see, like, quite quickly here, just like smooth this down, probably paint in. Now I can drop the intensity of that brush and I'll start doing like more refinement type stuff. And one of the things with pathing and stuff like that is, as a level designer and as a set dresser, you have full control over subconsciously directing where players run around in your environments. And it's something that's quite difficult to master, and you have to understand the fundamentals of environment composition and like biology, because you're always trying to battle between a combination of how do I make something look like an old school master's painting and actual world that could exist. You know, you don't want it to look fake, and you want the scale of things to be believable. And it's sometimes very easy when you've got this power at your fingertips to go a bit crazy and go too far with everything, and you end up with these environments that just kind of look overly detailed and you know, yeah, it's like we've had a lot of people say that these environments look like Pixar environments, and it's like they do. You know, we're utilizing the same principles that a company like Pixar would use in their set dressing. And I've personally taught over 10 people who've worked at Pixar things like environment creation, set dressing, and stuff like that. So we're always focusing on applying similar theory and level design techniques to the actual environments we're creating here. One of the tricky things is I could, you'll notice that while I'm like sculpting these, this path, I've got the rocks enabled, and it's kind of hard to see where the sand blends in here. But we've got Easter eggs built into the levels, so if I disable the rocks, you might, like I might accidentally reveal certain things, where certain things are in the environment. Okay. Very subtle tweaks, but I'm just trying to like get that feel that it's like sand rolling down the hill. Not there, it's just a first block out of what I'm trying to achieve here. But yeah, just trying to like visually give people that instant like, okay, we've entered this area. Where can I go to continue through? I can go up or I can go underneath. And now it's a lot clearer and, you know, makes a lot more sense. Pretty cool. Turn back on ray tracing and then have a playthrough. Maybe a little bit too... So it's pretty good. It's feeling pretty good. Not gonna lie, it's feeling pretty good. So just another thing, just to point out, right? So coming from V-Ray and print advertising in game development, you notice how you always see things like this. You see a rock just straight intersecting sand. It doesn't have any interaction with it. It's not like the sand slowly fades up into the cracks and stuff like that. And more AAA level game development will incorporate things like procedural material blending so that the sand blends into the rock based on a distance field, which is basically just like a GPU-based calculation that determines from screen space how far one object is from another object. And that can help smooth those things out. But like, I'm sitting there with Dimitri and I'm like, why don't we take it a step further? Why don't we come up with a system that can bake out the procedural materials that we build in V-Ray into Unreal? So one of the things that you would expect to see in an environment like this is where the sand is building up towards the edges of the rocks, it would form different types of dune crests and directionality. And right now, the dunes are like, this is a incomplete sand material, definitely not done. It'll totally change and look a lot more polished and better in the final. But it's just like a tiled texture. It looks shit in my eyes. Might be fine for most game studios or whatever, but if we want to try and make stuff look fully unique and have our own flavor to it, those are the types of things you've got to do to polish and give the game your own flavor. It's the same reason why like Andrew was talking to me and he was saying it's weird. It kind of looks like World of Warcraft, but like a modern version. And in World of Warcraft, every asset was handmade, everything was polished and painted so that, you know, in the crevices there was ambient occlusion, and it's a game that still holds up graphically 10 years later. Not to the same level as modern AAA, but they're like similar to Mario, it'll always have a place in people's nostalgia because it didn't just like... How many people are walking around like going, yeah, like I, you know, love playing Pac-Man still. Like it's not impressive anymore, and definitely not for the graphics or anything like that. But once upon a time, like Space Invaders was like crazy graphics. So the goal here is that like as we build out the metaverse, we do it in a way that doesn't require massively overhauling the graphics over a very short period of time. It's like find a style and a level of quality that is like perfect and then stick to it. You know, like, okay, cool, UE5 from UE4, it's honestly not going to be vastly different. You're going to get better performance because the real-time GI and ray tracing is much more optimized, and the polygon count and stuff like that. But as you can see, as I've started to polish this environment from some of those screenshots a couple of weeks ago, I'm simplifying this down. You don't actually need tons of detail to like make things clear and easily readable. How cool is that? Even though some of the, like, you can see some of those assets don't have their high poly collision hitboxes set up, and so like I just slid off of it. Things like that will all get fixed. Another example, we've got this like glowing lights, but then there's no actual ambient light underneath it. So like one of the things I can do is disable ray tracing for a second. And I'm going to go look for one of the ambient lights in the scene. That's one of the caustic lights. Another one of the caustic lights. There we go. So we've got an ambient light there. Duplicate it over. Pull that in there and then change the color of it. And you're faking the ambient global illumination bouncing around from the light. Always play with the colors, see if you can find that sweet spot where it's kind of looking like it fits. There's no like pure science to it, it's just like what's working, like what's... And then the position of the light can drastically affect how you perceive it. I'm going to increase the intensity and then change the fall off, which is, got a setting here. Where is it? So many settings inside of UE4. And when you're jumping between V-Ray and UE4, it can... Where is it? It's inverse square fall off. Performance. What the fuck? Rendering. Lighting. I've gone blind. Oh, there it is at the very top. Okay. Attenuation radius. So now I need to... Now we go. Now we're looking a little bit better here. See where we go, like sometimes little subtle things, like the difference between, bring the color picker in here as I'm going round. If you get the color too close to the color of the sand, it kind of blends in and you don't get any visual contrast in areas. And then if I like go a little bit more yellow, now all of a sudden I'm getting that gradient hitting off the light. Hit OK and then change the attenuation radius a little bit smaller. Do another one down under here. As soon as you do anything, you kind of got to play test it at this stage. Is it too bright? Probably. I think it's too bright. So just drop the intensity. There we go. A little bit less in your face. delete that. Don't need it. Now you can see we've from above got this very clear pathing. And some of the areas in the game we've specifically removed the pathing and made it impossible to get through unless your jump is super high. And so you have to figure out, okay, until I get those boots that give me this shortcut, how do I get to this area? And then that would require you running through some of the other areas, you know, around the level, which are all starting to, they're all starting to get there. This is another one of the areas that I was set dressing. Looks quite cool. Kind of sucks because now UE4 is getting a lot less performant than it was at the very start. But like, once again, we're designing this area so that you can't get through unless you like have epic boots or you follow the pathing with the plants and stuff. And I think what we're working on, don't hold me to this, but these plants, if you stay on them too long, they close up and swallow you. And it's like, we didn't design them like that originally, but as you're doing playtesting internally and getting closer to that private beta, it's like, it's not complex enough, and no matter how we spin it, you've got to add some kind of interactivity for the final game to have that AAA feel. And so we've remodeled the low poly on this character, which means rebaking and doing stuff like that, so that when you're jumping on it, you've only got like a few seconds to jump to the next plant, otherwise it's going to try and swallow you. And so there's like some bugs and stuff like that. Things aren't perfect, but once again, the hitboxes, like you see, it's kind of bugged here, but things like that get fixed with the final hitboxes. This is a remnant from the early block out of the level where we were setting placements a set distance away from each other to determine how the player would be able to jump from like one area to the next. You know, like one jump gets me across only because of the clam things floating on the walls. And we're also like looking in areas like this. How do we add plants or something at the base of these acorns? Which, you know, by the way, once again, these aren't final. We'll do things like add the roots to the surface. You know, like it's just intersecting here. Like if I exit, you see this plant actually, and it intersects through the ceiling, and you've got these root structures up there that are quite cool and require us to remodel that chunk of the plant in an exact way to fit to the ceiling, and all that happens at the end. But realistically, these are there to, if you're underneath them, they try and swallow you, and if you go on top of them, you can harvest some of the plants that spawn up there that require the more powerful boots and things like that. You know, so you, in the final game or whatever, you'd be able to run, jump across, like so, crack your head on the ceiling, fall to the floor, drown in a pile of acid, and then become the Joker. Which I think is pretty cool, you know, and these plants will all be jiggling and moving, and it'll be kind of an interesting feel. One of the things I might do on this level that we don't really have is sculpt in the, if I go to unlit here, this stream's getting, I'm probably going to end the stream soon, just because things are not very performant right now, being totally honest. Like my computer's been slowly, it happens with Unreal, it's just an Unreal editor thing. Okay, I'm going to go to the landscape mode. First of all, save all. Make writable. And actually, I can't edit this in case Vanya's on it. That's one of the other reasons why we're screwed here. There was quite a few people who fudded during that 20-second trailer delay. If you saw my Vulcan stream, you'll know that that trailer launch was one of the craziest things of my life. Totally crazy. That's one of the other issues with game development. We've got 3-4 other developers working on this level right now, and if I go in and do stuff, it can screw up what they're doing, which is, you know, not typically how 3ds Max would work. And if I was doing it like with Dimitri, we would just have 2 versions of the same file, and then at the end we would just merge them together. And in Unreal, you've got to have like sub-levels and stuff like that. You know, you can see these are all the sub-levels in Crimson Waste that you can access, like all the different tunnels. You know, like you got Soccer's Garden, which we released concept art for the other day, and all of these have to be organized in a way where each artist is working on one area in the level. I was currently working on the Southern Passage, which is this one. This is the Southern Passage. I still believe you guys should remake everything with 2D and pixelated art. This is too good for NFTs. We wouldn't want to get too close to Axie, would we? Show us a bit of Halcyon Sea. How about we jump on Halcyon Sea next week? Because for the exact reason, like I just said, sometimes people are working on things that make it hard for other people to work on the level. And we're currently doing water work, doing VFX testing for waterfalls. So I'd rather wait until we get something happening there. You know, we're trying to come up with a modern next-gen solution for waterfalls and things like that, as they're quite integral to like the visuals of the game. But yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll do a little bit of lighting here. See one of the... disable everything else. The other reason we do things like this is so that Unreal Engine dynamically loads things based on bounding boxes. So if we enter a bounding box for Southern Passage, it starts loading only Southern Passage stuff because the game knows that you can't see anything else in the level. Okay, that's running a little bit smoother now. I mean, the movement mechanics in this version of the game are applicable everywhere. As in, I can go load into Halcyon Sea, run around, but right now the Halcyon Sea is going through the same thing that Crimson Waste did, which is like, how do we make the game vertical? We've planned out the game horizontal, as in running, but like a big part of the level design of our worlds is that as you level up the jetpack and the jumping boots, you can access areas easier. And if you don't have the jumping boots and the jetpack, you can still get to those areas, but it's more of a grind and you have to do different types of jumps and figure out where to jump from. You know, say you wanted to get to the surface from down here in this tunnel, we might make it so there's only one way that you can get up here onto the surface. So you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that these levels not just look beautiful, but are spaced out correctly, feel the right size for someone who wants to spend an hour looking for Illuvials. Like, obviously the goal here from Ben and Aaron's point of view is buy access to a region. The region isn't so big where you feel like you're doing some Tour de France that's never ending and you get lost. Not too small where you do it too quickly, like you're in and out in 20 minutes kind of thing. But you have like a nice 40 to an hour long game session trying to clear the level and hoping to get some cool shit. I mean, like, I wouldn't even say they're jump puzzles. Like I said, like, there's no way around it. Like, none of us on the devs or the from my brothers and I have ever said the overworld gameplay is going to be some revolutionary, holy shit, best game ever. Like, obviously, the majority of the work has been put into making the auto battler perfect. And that is next gen and revolutionary, doing things there. And then when the devs finalize that stuff, then we make the shift to the environments, adding in those details that definitely make the game better, but don't make the game, if that makes sense. Like, adding in jiggles to plants and stuff like that isn't going to change the market for the NFTs, outside of just, is the game a little bit cooler and therefore more people playing it. But also, you guys are sitting there desperately waiting for the game, so we can't just say, well, it's going to take 3 years. You know, we've got to do certain things a certain way to give you guys a AAA experience in the NFT universe. Oh, the auto battler is receiving a huge amount more work from a gameplay perspective. There's so many things we've done from the auto battler perspective that are next gen and never before done in auto battlers that make the typical perception of an auto battler. Like, I personally, I don't like TFT, right? Aaron can sit there and try and get me to play it, and I don't like it. But I definitely have tried to put in things graphically and cameras and ways to make the auto battler genre more exciting. It's like, cool, you don't have the ability to use your keyboard or controls to control the individual characters, and to some people that's a negative. But how do we then still let people get like really cool visuals out of it so it doesn't feel monotonous and boring every time? Probably there's a couple of just like here we go. So here's like one thing Dimitri's working on at the moment is organizing some of the plants better. Like, there's certain things that we're not doing that AAA studios are doing, and one of our new artists who just came on from Horizon Zero Dawn was one of the environment artists on Horizon Zero Dawn, was giving us some pointers on asset management and, you know, making it easier to kit bash from and things like that. So that's going to be pretty cool. But we've obviously got a large asset library, and these are just the plants that we think are going to work in Crimson Waste. And I mean, the work we've put into these are all artworks. Like, all of these plants are just unbelievable. Some of the stuff that Alex did just fully comes through, you know, like, just artworks. Like, you don't need to put 4,000 plants, because if you just get a few put around that look kind of cool together, like, I can take something like that. Look at this fucking cool shit. So perfect. Yeah, not like, it's still a little bit low poly. You can see when you get super close, it kind of starts to break down. But I mean, this is crazy, guys. You don't get games that put this much work and love and attention to detail to environment pieces. You know, maybe, I mean, I saw the new Avatar Frontiers of Pandora or something like that. And yeah, they've got really good environments, really good assets, and obviously the selling point for that game is going to be the Avatar-like environment. But I mean, tell me we haven't done something on that level, if not better. Go compare these assets to the Frontiers of Pandora screenshots, and you let me know if these assets are any different or any lower quality. But I'm looking for like a plant that's going to be good to fill around those big plants. Can be hard sometimes to try and might take that guy and this guy and this guy and yeah, I'll take them. I'll cancel. Let's just unselect it, bastard. Take this one as well, this one, and I think that was it. Maybe this one. Okay, MNCW plan assets. Okay. It's just a matter of, I wish there was certain hotkeys like there are in 3ds Max, and this is admittedly one of the areas where I'm a little bit rookie with Unreal Engine. It's like I understand and mastered all of the actual artistic fundamentals, but then there are just things like hotkeys and little tricks and hacks that make working in Unreal a little bit more easy. It's like as we bring on more artists, we figure out obviously more and more how to make those improvements, but fuck, sometimes you do something for 3 months and then realize there was a really good way of doing it, and you're just like, sheesh. It's kind of disheartening. I'm just going to disable ray tracing. Can't wait for all these plants to be moving and just feel alive. Like, I'm just so tired of them being static. It's just like one of the fucking... Because we don't have the luxury of a 4-year development time, we can't finalize all the plant assets and then start set dressing. So it's like you got to set dress without having that luxury of them all moving and jiggling and interacting, whereas Unreal definitely has the power to do that. Like, I could be moving this plant while it's interacting, and like you hit it against the rock and the rig would jiggle, stuff like that. It's a shame. God, I haven't had water in like 4 hours. Crazy. Stay hydrated. I think a little bit of detailing underneath there. Some of it looks a bit shithouse, to be honest. You've got to be super critical when you're set dressing. It can kind of be a little bit robotic and mundane, but it's pretty fun. You know, so I'm just trying to like add a little bit of something underneath the plants just to give it, I don't know, a little X factor or something. And I'll just take those, move them over here and start it all over again. Put around like so, yeah. Pretty shit. That plant's up too high, I think. Gets a little bit tricky when you're getting these intersections and stuff. Like one of the things you got to look out for is just being able to hide that type of stuff from happening. Do is just hopefully find like a bit of a rock or something. Scale it up. Just find that perfect point where no pixels are showing through. Take this, bring that up. Boom. Cool. A little bit better. Lighting. It's not perfect. I don't like how much light there is over there, but I also don't know. Where is that light coming from? It's probably the directional. The sunlight. Disable the sun. Where is it? There it is. Okay. There's a material that's doing, see, it's just like this kind of procedural dust material over the surface. Now, this is not final, right? Like, it's just a placeholder while we're figuring out how to get that look and feel more optimized. You know, like it's a bit too in your face and it's just a bit too crazy. So that will go, but like it's also affecting the light that's hitting. Which is a bit annoying. Okay, one more run through and then I'll wrap the stream up. It's getting a bit choppy. Okay. So the idea with this level is, and the sky isn't finalized, so many work in progress things, just feel like I gotta say it. but it's like there's patches where the sun really comes through, like that desert sun really comes through, but also it's mostly just like dark and ominous and stuff like that. So like as you're running on the outside, you want patches of sun to reveal where you are and reduce the fog and give you like a little peek through the clouds, kind of literally. But then as you get into the caves, that lighting starts to dissipate and it gets a little bit softer. Ooh, issue there. So nice. It's just so nice. It just feels so good running through. That effect, see when you're running, that blue effect, we're going to minimize that. That's kind of shit. It's a bit too in your face. All of those plants, those mushrooms that Alex sculpted. Sheesh. Crazy. Crazy. The sand coming down from the top there. Pretty cool. Are you the type of person who would run along the path or just jump over it? Oh, I was looking at the chat and ran into the water almost. And I mean, look, I know some people are like, run into the water. Oh my god, we don't have fluid sim yet, but we're gonna do the water. We've already got the water actually. It's just in a test demo scene at the moment. We're trying to figure out how to apply this shader to Fluid Ninja water. So like as you run through, you know, if you're running through the edges, it'll ripple. Right now it's just flat. So welcome to work in progress game dev, but all that stuff is coming. It's nice, looks cool. So like in this tunnel, in the final game, there's obviously going to be places where you have to get to, you know, like up here, that might have harvestable plants. Now, it doesn't now because they spawn procedurally in areas like this. Like you can see, that's one area where you would need to clear this tunnel. You would need to run around, jump, try and find all the hotspots, and then get in and out. And then go do that in the other 7 tunnels, and then you're done. And by the time you do that, it might seem like we can get through this tunnel fairly quickly by sprinting and jumping and stuff like that, but it's about an hour. It's about 40 minutes to an hour to mine the plants and minerals and capture some Illuvials and then get out. Super cool. I hate Mozart right now. Kind of kills it for me a little bit. Just him not having more advanced movement systems. But he'll get there. He'll get there. Another area where you'd want to get up to and potentially get to the surface. Ooh. Little glitches and stuff with some of the IK, but yeah, some hitboxes aren't loaded correctly on these plants. But don't worry, it won't be like that in the game. Pretty cool though. Alrighty guys, I'm going to wrap it up there, but let's start doing some more of these types of streams. We've also got to reveal Halcyon Sea. We've got Lietes Studio doing the Abyssal Basin. We've got Onyx Studio working on doing some of the set dressing for Brightland Steps. Like, we're firing at all cylinders trying to get this stuff out as quick as possible, and to that actual quality where it's just like, what? No one asked for this in crypto, but you're going to get it. It's pretty exciting. It feels so cool. It's like ominous leading up. We'll add more crazy plants and stuff like that closer to the... Alrighty, cool. Catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for checking.